Well, welcome back to another session. Okay, today what we're going to be looking at is a bit more going in depth in networks. So coming back to our graphs and stuff, what we're going to be looking at today is a few different types of graphs. Okay, so the first main graph that we're going to look at is called a simple graph. Okay, now what is a simple graph? A simple graph is essentially one that meets these two criteria. There's no loops. Okay, which means that you can't go from a node back to the same node. Okay, so if I draw this out, right, if I have this as an edge, that's a loop. A simple graph would not have any loops. Okay, second thing that we need to have in a simple graph is that there's only one edge between any two vertices. Okay, maximum one edge. Okay, so I'll just show it to you what it looks like. So if I have this graph here, okay, very simple graph. I'll draw the edges with the other line, other color. So a very simple graph, right? Now this graph, that's a simple graph. Okay, so because it doesn't have any loops and any two edges only have any two vertices have a max of one edge in between them. All right. So this is also a simple graph because even though these two do not have an edge joining it, that's fine. As long as there's not more than one. So if this was another edge here, right? So there was two edges joining these two vertices here, then it's no longer simple. Similarly, if I have a loop here, then it's not simple. So it's a pretty straightforward concept, just a bunch of criteria that it should meet. Okay, so another graph is what we call a subgraph. Okay, now what is a subgraph? It's just part of a bigger graph. Okay, so you can use some edges from it, some vertices from it, and it's just a part of the bigger graph. There's not really much more to it. Okay, it just should have all those same vertices and edges in it. Okay, so now we're going to talk a bit more about roots and stuff. Okay, so what we're going to look at today, all right, is a walk to start off with. So I hope you remember what the difference between a root and a path is. So a root is a sequence of nodes, all right, from a start to a finish node. Okay, and a path is a route, but you cannot visit any node more than once. Okay, I hope you remember that. A walk, all right, is a sequence of vertices such that there is an edge between each successive pair. So a walk is essentially a possible path. Okay, or let's just say a possible route. Okay, not something that is not physically possible. Any route that you define, if there are edges connecting all the nodes that you've mentioned, then it's a walk. Okay, and the next thing we're going to look at is a trail. Now what's a trail? A trail is one where no edge is repeated. Okay, very simple. So if you go along the same edge again, that's not valid. All right, next thing, a path, like we said before, no vertex is repeated, but we're also going to add the clause that no edge is repeated. Okay, now one more thing is a cycle. Okay, what's a cycle? It's one where you start and finish at same node, but you can't go over any edges again. more than once. Okay, so it's fairly simple. All right, a walk is just a possible route. A trail is a walk but no repeated edges. A path is a trail but no repeated vertices. A cycle, you start and finish at the same node and you cannot go over the same edge twice. Very straightforward. Okay, one more thing I want to say is that a route can be either closed or it can be open. Okay, so if it's closed, that means that it starts and ends at the same vertex. So it's kind of like a cycle, but obviously it doesn't have to follow the other criteria. Okay, so a route is open if starts and ends at same vertex. Okay, otherwise closed. Oh, sorry, it's the other way around. So a route is closed if it starts and ends at the same point, otherwise open. Okay, so fairly straightforward. What we're going to do now is I'm going to show you sort of a way to go about looking at a graph and deciding what a given route is, like which of these things, which of these categories do we put that route in. Okay, so first of all, we're going to look at the whether it's possible or not. All right, is it a walk? Okay, or we're just going to say, is it possible? So I'm given a route. Is it possible? Like, is there an edge between every node that I mentioned there? If no, then it is not a valid path, just straight up. Not a valid route. If yes, then at the very least, it's a walk. Okay? Next, we're going to look at, all right, does the route that I've given you, does it start and finish at the same node? If it doesn't, right, then it can't be a cycle and the route has to be open. Okay? So that's the two things. If no, then route is open because it does not start and finish at the same node. Okay? Next thing is that we're going to look at, are any vertices repeated or are any edges repeated? Okay? And then based on that, you can either determine if it's a path or a trail. That part is fairly straightforward, so I won't show it up. Okay? Now here, if it does start and finish at the same node, then route is closed. Okay? And notice that it can't be a path anymore because the starting vertex is repeated. All right? So what it can be now is it can either be a trail, all right, or it can be a cycle. Okay? Now, what are the requirements for it to be a trail or a cycle? So it's actually the same requirement. Do we go over edge twice? All right? Do we go over a given edge twice? If yes, then we can't add anything to it. It's not a cycle because edges can only be went over once, and not a trail because of the same reason. And if yes, or if we don't go over any edge, then it is a trail and a cycle. Okay? And then you can use this logic, like I said before, whether or not we go over any vertices, whether or not we go over any edges to determine whether it's a trail or a cycle. So using this sort of mind map here, you can figure out what type of graph it is. All right? What type of route the given route is. Okay? And sometimes a root can fit into many categories. Like here, a root can be a walk and an open root. It can be a closed root and a cycle and a trail at the same time, right? So multiple of these categories can be met at the same time. All right, but the point is to practice a bit. All right, make sure you're familiar with these definitions, because going on, knowing that will be very useful. And if you're ever stuck, come back to this mind map and use it to figure out what your root is. All good. Hey guys, two things. If you do have any questions regarding the content we just covered, just go ahead and drop that in the comments. I'll make sure to get to that as soon as possible. And secondly, if you liked the video or if you got anything that was useful from it, make sure to check out the website, Prep Folders. There's so many more videos like this, so many more resources, practice questions and all the lot. So just go ahead and have a look. If you need help, there's some tutors and mentors there as well. So just have some fun over there. And yeah, we'll see you on the other side.